Ciao guys, it's your boy M.K.S here, back in another video. Finally back here with part 2, I hope with the right title, of striving to support Celtic to be as successful as possible. Well, as I put it on YouTube, I tried to put it a different title on YouTube, but I'm finally back with part 2. I went to my stepdad's house and he gave me a shave and a haircut. So I'm very clumsy. He kindly gave me a haircut. I'm already balding. I was like, how can my hair be balding and overgrown at the same time? Only I could have that problem, I'm sure. But he gave me a shave. Some people say like I might as well just shave the whole lot off. Or someone even joked I'd keep a long beard and shave the top bit off, but I don't know if I need to wear caps now, but I just do that anyway. I want to make these videos for some reason. But actually, because the weather was quite nice, I even went out with this nice AC land cap. I'm a mad fan of Italian football generally, and this is probably my favourite cap. Anyway, as a supporter of both Italian football and Celtic, sorry if anyone's just stumbled across this mad guy here and got confused. I was thinking something I posted online recently, and probably got myself in a spot of bother online with some disagreements or misunderstandings. Clumsy post, if you like that posted. But so you have to be careful what you say online. But sometimes a bit foolish with what I post. But anyway, welcome to part 2. As I say, way behind schedule because I went to my stepdad's house, had a haircut and a shave, and had some nice food to eat, and then had a Subway and some other nice food to eat, and then played a few games, and then I came back and I was really tired. I went to sleep for ages. I only went to sleep for like an hour or so, and it was about 2.5 or 3 hours or something. Anyway, so these are pointers number 11 to 20 as per usual for part 2. I was sitting here with my clumsy communication. I have to be careful what I say just in case I accidentally offend anyone. I hope I don't, but with anything I say. But anywho, I was going to say one or two other things, but I'm going to crack on with the list. So point number 11, thinking about what Celtic could change to improve. I think like the sentence structure, trying to say it the right way, but or the best possible way at least. But I normally say improvement requires change, and I think there's lots of things Celtic could do to improve, I'm sure. So I'd love to know and discuss like what could Celtic do to improve, what sort of things what changes should Celtic make, what things they need to change to improve. But yeah, what improvements could be made, and again that requires change, changing certain things like investment strategy or whatever. I mean, like a lot of supporters, for instance, say there's lots of money in the bank, but how does the club spend that? Not necessarily going out and just buying those players, but how does it spend that wisely and that kind of thing. I think one thing that the club does do well, actually, this is the opposite to change. I think, in fact, I might say it in point number 12. But yeah, what sort of things I talked about in point number 2, like part 1, point number 2, like what could the club learn from others, whether that's Spanish, Italian, French, or other teams, English teams even, other Scottish teams even. What could the club? Yeah, that noise, but I think it's because I left that in the freezer so long. I'm terrible at science, so I don't know what it's working on now. But yeah, I'm trying to leave that to defrost or whatever. But the weather's warm, but not that warm. But I thought because the weather was warm, I could keep this in the freezer for longer. This other drink that I got from Subway as part of the meal. Nice. Yeah, what are some of the things the club could change and do to improve, basically, that kind of thing. So yeah, moving on, number 12. One thing the club, I would say, I'd also love to know what the club does well and how can it continue with that momentum on what it already does well, and maybe just continue to improve that and constantly improve. Thinking about, I think of 11 as like change, and 12 as like motivation, but also continuation. So how can the club continue to improve and continue to make sure it doesn't setting it too much in its ways when it needs to make change, or setting its laurels, or whatever the saying is. Or setting its laurels, even you could say maybe. But yeah, setting its laurels, or whatever the saying is. Like basically not being too complacent. So, for instance, when if and when the the club not saying, "Oh, we've already won the league," or "We've already won this competition," or whatever it might be. It might take it might be something that it's not one, it's not over till it's over, or whatever, and continuing to improve, as I say, and not being complacent. But as I say, one thing the club, I was going to say, one thing the club does do well is like when we sell a player on, we have a sell on clause. So, for instance, if we sell a player for 10 million, which is not a lot in English football, but in Scottish football it's a fair amount. But if we sell a player for like 10 million to Arsenal, and then they're sold to Liverpool for 30 million, or even like 70 million, or they're sold for a lot of money, or whatever. Obviously, for most people that's a lot of money, but in football terms, like Virgil van Dijk, I think we got sold on FIFA for when we sold him to Southampton, and they sold him to Liverpool. So I think we get 15%, not quite as high 50, but 15%, which is quite cool. I'd be happy with even 10%, but I think it's 15% if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's quite a good deal. But what does the club do well, basically, and what could it improve upon? Number 13, I was going to say this in the intro, but I thought the intro was going on too long. But unfortunately, the Farts, as I call them, Farts won their game. I was hoping they would lose, or at least draw, and at one point they were drawing. I stumbled upon the highlights because I was watching a Celtic supporter channel talking about something to do with the rankers, as I call them, and their supporters complaining about the blocking at the allocation of some of their supporters. And after that, as it happened, the next video was on France versus Hibs, the derby, and I was looking on my phone online, and I was checking technology. I was checking, and I saw that it was a 1-1 draw for a certain period of time, and then sadly, France scored right at the end. But when I saw the highlights, I was wondering, I wonder if there's any dodgy decisions which helped them against us, as some conspiracy theorists, rather say, on our side of things. But that's perhaps a story for another time. But I was going to say something important, but I didn't want to jinx it in point number 13. But yeah, sadly, I'll say Farts, as I rather maturely call them, or in other words, Hearts, one right at the death, right at the end, right at the death, as they say. But it was the Hibs goalkeeper, unfortunately, rather clumsily handballed the ball. I think he was trying to handle it, obviously in the box, but it was just outside, and he got a red card, which I think was a fairly tough decision. But I thought a yellow would be suffice, but that's rules. That's rules, as long as they apply it fairly to everyone, I guess. Although I think in football they should try and send less people off unless they really need to. But Hibs went at one point went down to 9 men. I was hoping, because it looked a bit feisty for a while, so I was hoping that a few France players would be sent off, or hamstring or suspended, get lots of bookings, and maybe get a few injuries which could help us out. I think some people say we shouldn't focus on our rivals' games, but I think that does affect our games. Like, I think it's still kind of in our hands, but we have to beat them, which will be hard. Hopefully they'll drop a few more points, which might help. But we've got to win all our games, which is like each game is like a final. So we've got like 4 or 5 finals left. But it was almost a beautiful Sunday, but not quite. But yeah, I guess 2 out of 3 ain't too bad. But yeah, unfortunately they won, which is a bit of a shame, right at the end as well. And considering Hibs were 1-0 up at one point and drawing for probably large parts of that game, and right towards the end, scored a late goal, which is very annoying. But it is what it is, as they say. But yeah, what are some of the weaknesses of the club, and what are some of the threats facing the club that it has to take on, and that kind of thing. And number 14, I hope they'll be able to solve those problems. Also, as I say, 13, I normally think with something negative, but as I said, 2 out of 3 ain't too bad. And I think in a way, most importantly, Celtic won our game, which I think was really important, especially with France winning. If we drew or heaven forbid lost, it then puts the title out of our hands. It's then we are definitely relying on other results, or we would be if we didn't actually get all 3 points yesterday. But yeah, it was almost a beautiful Sunday. I saw the Rankers lost, I'm sure 3-2, which was pretty cool. It would have been a lot to expect both of those teams to drop points. I think ideally I would love to see them both lose, or at least draw. But that does put us ahead of them, the rivals, the Rankers, as I call them, rather maturely, I would say. But yeah, think about the weaknesses and threats and negative things facing the club. What are some of the solutions to the problems we face, and also the opposite side of things, utilising the positives, the strengths and opportunities of the club, the opportunities for investment and things like that. I think it'd be cool to utilise that. Number 15, oftentimes when it comes to football, I was thinking, like, let's say, I think if you won every week and you didn't have a challenge, it would be quite boring. I don't know, other supporters, especially Celtic supporters, think I'd love to ask in the future. I'd love to ask questions to Celtic supporters at some point in the future. I'd love to have videos where I ask questions to Celtic supporters. I can't remember if I've done that or not, but yeah, in the future I have to do that. Maybe in August, to ask like questions to Celtic supporters and that kind of thing. Even my silly little patterns, I'd say fans on Fridays and supporters on Sundays. I'm sure even Saturdays, especially on Sundays, because of my silly little patterns. But admittedly, it'd be good to know what Celtic supporters want to see and what their goals are for the Celtic supporters. And I don't know that, but I'd love to read and hear from other Celtic supporters, and how the supporters can get involved in supporting the club, whether it's like fundraising for the club, investing into sponsoring, or even donating to the club. Maybe like I would like even think about like even Celtic celebrity sports and sports generally could fund the club, and maybe a naive one I have to think of is like crowdfunding or GoFundMe, but I don't know if that raises that much. And normally that's probably for charity, but that, I mean, I suppose the foundation probably does that. But yeah, promoting positive things about the club and listening to the sports and how the sports can connect. I've been saying point number 9, but I didn't think of that at the time, but in part 1, but how the investors into the club, the owners, co-owners, shareholders, sponsors, and whatever else, how they can connect with the supporters and come together and unite and that kind of thing. I don't know if you had that. But yeah, I would love to know what other Celtic sports want science to do. As usual. And try to remember my chair of thought, keep forgetting things, which is really annoying. But yeah, so I'm not sure how that could work. I was thinking like supporters, including celebrity supporters, especially those with bigger pockets, I guess, so to speak, bigger bank accounts. Like apparently Michael Owen is a Celtic celebrity supporter, Wayne Rooney, and 1 or 2 other former footballers, maybe current footballers as well. Also, like people like Conor McGregor and people like that. I know he's talked about investing in the club. But even if they can't buy it outright, maybe they could say, let's say if they have lots of money, they could say, I'll give you 25 million, and I'll give the club 25 million. I'm not sure why that was the number that came to my mind, but we'll give the club 24. I'll give the club 25 million to have a supporters club in my name, Antragore Academy, is what I initially think of. So I'll give the club, or it could be 5 million or 10 million or 1 million or whatever. I suppose if it's lots of supporters together, maybe they could have a joint name. So if there were 1 million supporters come together and raise a certain amount for academies, they could have different names on it, like on a wall or whatever. They could put all their names to it. So you could have an academy and Antragore Sports Club, preferably both in your name. So they could be, let's say, the Michael Owen Celtic celebrity. Sorry, the Michael Owen CSC Celtic Sports Club, Antragore the Michael Owen Celtic Academy, and that kind of thing. And again, people like Wayne Rooney, Rod Stewart, and Snoop Dogg, and people like that, Celtic celebrity supporters could donate, and therefore the club could have loads of academies for younger players to develop, and also maybe having shares in the club. So there could be so many shareholders and be open to so many shareholders. So even if they don't own the club outright, they still have shares in the club, which could help the club and put their money where their mouth is. And even supporters who don't have a lot of money, some could put a tenner in, some could just put a five or just a pound in, and some could put hundreds in, thousands or whatever they're comfortable with. Maybe like really big supporters could put in, could give like 10% of their wages or 10% of savings, even if they're comfortable doing that. Obviously, only if they're comfortable doing that. Obviously, it's not why it's going to debt or whatever, but to bad debt, or whatever. But yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool if they had like celebrity and general support clubs. Again, sometimes it could be multiple supporters putting in money together, pooling money together, maybe having CSCs, Celtic Sports Clubs, and academies in their name, and that kind of thing. Number 16, I probably should have said that, number 16, but I'd love for people to talk about any ideas that can benefit the club, as many ideas as possible. Number 17, it would be hard to imagine the club winning as many trophies as I would like. Actually, I was trying to make an extra point, I completely forgot about it, but I was thinking like with Italy, let's say with the Italian national team as a support of Italian soccer as well, or football or whatever you want to call it, as I normally say, if Italy won like 10 World Cups and then Brazil won 8, let's say the next best team was Brazil and they won 8, I would be like, okay, I don't mind if we get knocked out in the next tournament or don't make it because we've already won more than most. But I think there could be a complacency in there because, like Celtic, for instance, have won more trophies than rankers. But let's say, heaven forbid, next season they get lots of investment. If they win the league, they get Champions League money and things like. Although they would have to play in Europe, or they would have to do that as well. Anyway, but it could even benefit them. Like we have to play on Thursday, and they have to play on, I was going to say Friday, actually Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. So they have a day or two extra to prepare for the league as well. So there could be lots of knock-on benefits, especially if they reinvest that money. So again, not to stay still, but to keep moving. As some might say, if you stay still, you're going backwards compared to the other teams. If they start to invest, like we see with, as they're doing this season, like how much money they've put in with Tony Bloom and that kind of thing, how they're surprising everyone. Part of it is they've been so good, and part of it is we haven't been very good and up to standard, up to our usual high standards. So again, keeping those standards, I suppose you could say. But yeah, in the past I thought about it. I'd love for, depending on how long the world lasts for, so I have paranoias about the world ending soon or whatever. As Christians say, Muslims and Christians say, like the end of days and that kind of. But assuming the world's here in another 50 or 100 years or whatever, by some miracle, the way things are going, who knows? But seeing Celtic winning like 200 trophies or whatever, but how do they keep that hunger, basically, to put it simply, winning trophies and that kind of thing. But yeah, it'd be hard to imagine us catching Al Ali, and especially considering we've already lost 2 finals. And I was thinking the board should use that as a case for reinvesting to make up for that. So like to buy 2 great new strikers and that kind of thing. I don't want to insult the players we've got at the moment, but to buy 2 new strikers and like look at how they can reinvest money. Like when we sell a player, how can we? Sorry, we in speech, we or us in speech mark. I don't have that habit, but how can Celtic use the money we get on like players we sell and like the sell-on fee that we have when they're sold to other teams, and that kind of thing. And number 18, as I say, promoting positive things about the club, and as I say, not staying still, not resting on our laurels or whatever the saying is, not standing on our laurels because that's to keep going forward and that kind of keep improving and that kind of. Number 19, I was going to say in the intro again. The intro was a bit long, but I actually forgot as well. As a side topic, I did want to address like the problem apparently in South Africa. It's really sad. It's a really sad situation that I read and heard about recently. I know it flared up last year, I suppose, with underemployment and underemployment, and all that horrible stuff. I guess it creates a lot of friction, but I heard that there's a lot of animosity, xenophobia towards fellow Africans from like Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, I assume all over Africa, certainly Nigeria and Ghana and Kenya and that kind of thing. And I think it's such a sad thing to see. I'd love to see Africa unite and maybe Celtic support with that. And I'd love to see Celtic fundraise to help South Africa and other parts of Africa, as well as Asia, in like STEM and things like that, helping like African software developers and startups from Africa, SMEs from Africa, and helping African development and that kind of thing. Which is one of the reasons why I love the club, with the foundation, the charitable work. Also, like how our rivals sing like "Rule Britannia" as an anti-imperialist. The fact that our rivals, the rankers, are like pro-imperialistic, they sing "Rule Britannia," which is their choice. I normally mention, but obviously I'm going to support the opposite side. And also that, like as a support of republics, the rankers are like big royalists. But yeah, and finally, number 20. Having a mix between youth and older players, more experienced players, perhaps. As ever, I'd love to know from Celtic Sports. I'll say, what do you think the mix? Not just Celtic Sports, but but everyone's welcome as ever. Like people who are into football, into soccer, might say this is what Celtic could do better. Even as like outsiders of the club, or people who might have a soft spot for the club, but certainly Celtic Sports and those who know about football, soccer. I don't imagine, obviously, the rankers or our supporters will want to give us much advice, I guess. But yeah, I dream that the club will support STEM development for developing nations, African software developers, programmers, software developers, coders, app makers, designers, creators, and African AI and things like that, and supporting projects that benefit people in Asia as well, like startups and SMEs and that kind of thing. So hopefully as a club also benefits with having more supporters as well and feeling good about supporting others, which is again one of the reasons why I support the club. And a few other things I thought to include, but I think I'll include them in part 3 and triple 4. And on that note, I'm out and peace and love.